I missed my best friend's baby shower. Now he's cut me off without knowing the truth. I, 29F, have a friend, 29M, let's call him Felix, who is more like a brother than a friend. We've known each other basically our whole lives. My parents see him as their son and vice versa daughter to his. Prior to finding out he was having a baby, I was at the time in a toxic relationship that had turned abusive. I didn't tell anyone except my closest girlfriend, Jenna. Anyway, Felix and I have a group chat with my other two sisters, Crystal, 32, and Cynthia, 29, my twin, and one day out of the blue he sends us an invitation to a baby shower. Me and my sisters were kinda lost at first, but then realized he was having a baby. We congratulated him and he told us that he wasn't excited about being a father, so leading up to the baby shower I would randomly text him and give him some advice and just tell him that even though he wasn't planning on being a father yet, he should accept it cause it's happening and you don't want your kid to grow up knowing that their dad wasn't excited to have them. I sent him his gift a week before the baby shower and started planning on how I was going to get there. Crystal agreed to drive us there, so I had every intention on going. Sorry, I forgot to mention that a couple weeks before I got the gift I had broken things off with my boyfriend cause I've had enough of his manipulation and abuse. He didn't have the money to move out, so I let him live with me until he found a place. Big mistake, the night before the shower my ex decided to come into my room and try to get in bed with me. I told him to leave since we'd agreed he would sleep on the couch, but he didn't and eventually forced himself on me. The next morning I pulled myself together to get ready for the shower when I got a text from Crystal saying she can't make it, so I'm out of a ride. My other sister Cynthia couldn't make it cause she couldn't get someone to cover her shift at work, so I was left to try to figure out how to get there myself. I texted a couple friends I knew where going and only one responded saying they didn't have space in their car. I was already clinging onto my sanity from the night before, so this threw me off the edge. The baby shower was like an hour and a half away driving and almost 3 hours on public transit. I had a breakdown and ended up staying home in bed crying, so I missed the shower. The next day, I didn't want to be in the apartment with my ex, so I went to Cynthia's house to hang out. We both get a text in the group chat from Felix saying how upset he was that we didn't show up and that we shouldn't even bother calling him brother anymore. Basically, we were dead to him. My sister responds saying that she's sorry but she just couldn't make it, and I tried to make a joke cause that's how I deal with conflict, saying I was too broke to get an Uber after I lost my ride. I just didn't want to tell him what really happened the night before. I wasn't ready for that conversation. So after this he basically blocks us all on social media. A couple weeks later my crazy ex wakes me up in the middle of the night, but this time it was more unhinged than normal. He spends hours screaming at the top of his lungs, and every time I try to calm him down, he threatens me. I was supposed to work in the morning, so I got really frustrated and started yelling back at him to leave when he turns to me and starts choking me without warning. I had to kick and scream and scratch my way out of his grip until he finally let go and left the apartment. The only person I thought to call was Felix, cause he was my brother still, even though he was mad at me. He doesn't answer, so I call again and leave him a voicemail. My voice was shaky, I was hysterically crying, and still no answer or call back. I knew the baby shower was important to him and I had every intention on going. But after what I had been through, I wasn't in the right place to be around a lot of people. I sent him a text explaining this and he must have heard my voicemail, but still till this day I haven't heard anything from him. I just don't see how missing a baby shower can make you cut ties with someone you considered family and ignore them at the time they needed you most when their life was literally on the line. AITA for not pushing past the events the night before so that I could make it to the baby shower? Related comments. Commenter. And I'm so sorry you went through all that. Felix's defo the AH here. The shower may have been his attempt to become excited for the baby. Given your closeness, I assume you doing a no-show no-call is out of the ordinary type of behavior for you. You could argue that you could have given him a better explanation without going into detail, like, sorry, I had a lot happen in the last 24 hours, we can talk about it when I'm ready, but I don't feel like he would have been all that receptive to it. The fact that he went straight to cutting you guys out of his life rather than privately asking if everything was okay is very telling. Hoping your wording means you're no longer in that relationship and doing better. Op reply, thank you. Yes, I'm no longer with that guy. I had to move to a different state for my safety. Commenter, I don't do baby showers. I used to. Stopped after a third baby did not make an earthly appearance. After a baby is on the planet, they get a big box from Melissa and Doug Whip, the giant tiger. Its second baby gets the lion. Commenter, NTA, you're not the a-hole for surviving and overcoming trauma while trying to be there for your close friend. This was a case of miscommunication. Being unable to speak about such a delicate situation is understandable. Mixed with Felix being preoccupied in his life and not realizing you needed help. It's a bit unfair to name him the AH as he wondered where his sister was, and the joke didn't help either. I know the joke was made in deflection. He didn't know. I think it's time to visit him in person and explain the abuse of your ex-boyfriend. However, feel free to leave out the parts that truly upset you. Have him understand you're in dire need of help and how hard you tried to be there for him. If he isn't receptive to you, plays the blame game, or accuses you of making things up, it's time for more space between you two. Now is the time for you to put yourself first. How are you feeling? Are you up to seeking help from a professional? Do you need more personal help from your friends? A support group, maybe? Do you more need time to heal? What happened to you shouldn't be brushed off as the norm. You need to pull in your friends and tell them the truth. Please don't isolate yourself. I hope you are kind to yourself while you heal. This isn't something that has to rushed and is your decision at the end of day. Have peace. Story 2. I, 22F, and my boyfriend, 27M, were expecting a baby. I was 3 months pregnant and vomiting day and night. I was unable to work and lost my job. Dan took a construction job over a long weekend in Chicago, over 6 hours from where we lived. He promised to call me each night after work, but let me know he would be working long days to make the trip work worth it. He promised to call me each night after work. The first day after work, he did not call. He called me the next day and told me he was so exhausted that he laid down and fell asleep at 6 p.m. and slept all night through. He promised to definitely call me the next night. The next night, the same thing happened. I received a phone call the next day saying he had been so exhausted. He immediately fell asleep. On the third night at 11 p.m., I still have not heard from him. I called the front desk of the hotel and told them I was almost hysterical because my husband was a diabetic and was not answering the phone. I was afraid he was in a coma on the floor, and would they please go check on him? The front desk staff immediately contacted the security guard, who took the phone with him to the room. He used his master key to get in and reported to me there was no one in the room, and it did not appear anyone had been in the room. The bed was still made. Thank you, sir. The next day, I got the same call from my boyfriend's dating. He had passed out on the bed exhausted at 6 p.m. Having confirmed his lie, I set about my revenge. Having been laid off from his job, he was several months behind on his truck payment. He had bought it brand new only 6 months prior. When he went out of town, he left the truck at his mother's home about 20 miles away, so it would not get repossessed. I quickly called the bank the loan was through and asked them if they would like to know where their truck was. Indeed, they did want to know. I gave them the address, and within 48 hours his truck disappeared from his mother's driveway. When he came back into town, he was furious and reported he had $1,500 cash locked in the console. I was extremely happy at this turn of events because he had left me with no money and deserved it. Him losing his truck made dumping him easier, because he then had to live 20 miles away with his mother. Several years later, I was happily married to a man who adopted my son, and we are living happily ever after.